So you said you lived on this street for how long?
2 years at the end of the month. Yeah.
And I remember you when I came back, like, last week, and I wanted to interview you then. You were talking about how you had some problems moving in because, like, some of your neighbors weren't very friendly towards you. What happened with that?
Well, there's kind of two parts of that, I guess. And it goes back to before I moved in. I had been living here for 3 years in Charlotte, renting, and I ride bikes a lot. And so we would ride bikes through this neighborhood, and I said, I love, this side of town, and these neighborhoods are so quiet. And a lot of people, mostly people from Charlotte, said, oh, it might be nice, but you shouldn't move over there. And I said, well, why? And it's, well, there's a lot of crime, and, being a single white woman in a predominantly black neighborhood, I mean, that's just crazy, pretty much. So there's a lot of that kind of baggage, I guess, hanging over my head, but at the same time, I come to this town and my experiences from different contexts, so, like, my hang-ups about maybe difference are different than other people's, and I knew that, and so I thought, well, being a good researcher, I just looked at the city statistics. I looked at crime rates in 28205, which is Plaza, where else I was looking, and 2828, and generally speaking, they were the same, so I'm like, I'm not sure where this is coming from, but anyway, so I listened, and so I started looking at homes, and I just really kept loving the neighborhoods over here, but still there was a little bit of that idea, like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be over here, coming from, essentially white friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so I decided I really like this house. It's got a great history, and then moved in, and within 3 days, someone came and stole all of my copper plumbing under my house. Like, came in with hacksaws and stole my plumbing. And so that wasn't a good way to start on my side, and I thought I was wrong. I was being naive, and everyone was right that I shouldn't be here. It's too dangerous. So that took a while to think about, and I had problems trusting my neighbors because I thought someone around here must have done this. So there's a lot of, like, layers already happening. But over time, within a couple months, I started to meet people, and I thought one of the best ways to feel, like, comfortable where I am, wherever I am, I've moved around a lot, is to meet people, meet neighbors, and don't be afraid. Don't let your friends or this unfortunate experience slow you down. Like, keep just being positive about it, And so I started to meet neighbors, and that's where I think what I was talking to you about, where I started to realize this isn't just me coming into a neighborhood trying to adjust, it's the people already here trying to adjust to me. And so yeah, I met, different people, and that was going very well, and then suddenly it wasn't going well with one house in particular. And that was hard to deal with, so for 6 months, I mean, there's a lot of hostility. And I think I said, I'm not good with that, and I was living here, and I was going to stay here. I mean, I purchased a home. It's not like I'm just renting for a month. So eventually I went up and just asked the person, hey, can I talk to you about what's going on? I feel like I've done something wrong to you, and if I have, I want to know what it is. And he was willing to talk, and so since then we've had some pretty good conversations, and he was pretty clear that he said, I've grown up here, and when I see you moving in, you are a threat to me, and you're a threat to my community, and so it was a really good place to start from.
Yeah, it's great that he was willing to be open about it too, right?
Yeah, and we talk all the time now, and watch out for each other, but he's talked about some other things too with, things like, for me, it's very troubling being in the South and kind of seeing how race still functions in this area in really, like, prominent ways. And you know, I've asked him about that being a very powerful black man. I was like, does this bother you? Because I'm like sitting on my porch crying my eyes out because it seems so unfair.
Yeah.
It seems so unfair. And so to get his views on that, you know, and to say, for the most part, at least what he tells me, he says, I just keep my head down. I don't make waves, I don't make trouble, and it's just easier that way. So it's neat to be able to kind of learn from my neighbors, and my neighbors over here too. I've talked to them a lot. Right next door, I'm real close with them, and you know, their views are different. So it's really, I don't know, it's good for me to be able to say, you can't just say collectively like, oh, that side of town is X, or black people think Y.
They're monolithic. Yeah.
No, it's just like saying white people X or white people Y, which you never hear. I think that's interesting. Like, oh, well, you know, white people. Like, no one ever says that, ever. But I hear a lot like, well, you know, black people, or
Yeah.
sometimes a worse word than that. I'm like, no, I don't. So,
Seems like that was a good change, but also a difficult change for you to experience all of that moving here.
yeah, it's a learning experience. I think the South, and I don't know, at first I thought Charlotte, I remember when I moved here, I said, oh, that must be so hard, you know, coming from the West Coast. Apparently that means something too, but the West Coast. And moving to the South, in the first, I would say a couple years even, I was like, it's not really that different, because Charlotte's so, there's so many transplants here, you know, you can drive outside of the city 30 minutes to maybe a smaller town and get a little bit more of that sense of the South. But I said, it's not really that different. Well, after you spend some time somewhere, you know, years 3 and 4 and 5, that's when I started to have enough time here to say, you know, it's pretty darn different. And it comes up in interesting ways. Like, I don't consider myself an environmentalist, but I do think like the decisions that are made about the environment in the South and in North Carolina are pretty disturbing to me. But it took me a while to kind of realize that. You know, I come from a state that had a bottle bill, so you'd paid a 5-cent tax on your soda can, and then when you were finished drinking it, you return it, and you got your 5 cents back. Like, to me, and that was in the 60s, you know, I mean, to me, this isn't like some deeply political decision. It just makes sense, and you have less trash, and people, I know a guy who paid for his daughter to go through school because he picked up cans, you know, he was this wonderful Vietnamese refugee, and, you know, and things like that. I mean, to think of passing a bottle bill in North Carolina, I mean, people would just be up in arms. Is the state getting involved? And to say nothing of like water quality. I mean, just basic things that you would have an unlined coal ash pond next to your major water reservoir. I mean, that just never, for decades, like that would never happen where I'm from. So, but it takes so long, you know, to really start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion and go, wow, actually it's really different. And I've looked at other jobs, and honestly, part of the reason I haven't taken them is either I don't want to live in the place like Las Vegas or something, but also I'm just really intrigued by the South. I just feel like I'm just sitting around most of the time going, that's different. Like, that's different too. Not judging it, just being like, whoa, that's different. And I kind of like that.
But you're in the neighborhood association. So what, I don't know, like how, you don't have to relate the two, I'm just saying like that's another organization you're a part of. Like how is that? Like what do you get from being a part of that?
So the neighborhood association was, early on, I just thought, I'm moving to a new neighborhood, and because I'm really putting down roots, so this was the first home I ever bought. This is the longest I've actually lived in one place since I was 18, so I'm going on 2 years. But I knew that wherever I moved, where I was putting down roots, I wanted to be part of a neighborhood association. So that was just something I wanted to do. And then I met the group, and technically I live in Parkview, even though some people say it's, so I got a little flyer on my door that said there's the monthly meeting, and so I went, and it wasn't that fulfilling at first, so I kind of went like 2 or 3 times, and it was very disorganized. It was like 2 hours long of just kind of complaining about crime, which I totally understand, but because I'm just kind of geared to be like, okay, let's do the complaining, and then let's try to find some things we want to do to prevent whatever's bothering you from happening. I kind of thought, this might not be the right fit. So I didn't go back for about 6 months. And then I saw a person from the association, and she said, we'd really like you to come back and come to another meeting. And so I did, and just slowly, we've started to be more focused, I think. And a lot of the members have kind of talked about saying, well, we can sit here and complain all the time, but we're not really getting anything done. And so they started to talk about that, and I thought we could work well together, because they bring a strength that I don't, which is a familiarity with the neighborhood. They've been here a long time, so they have knowledge that I don't. And then I tend to be kind of organized and can like organize things. And so they said, well, after a few meetings, they said, okay, well, it's election time, so why don't we make Sarah the secretary? Everyone who wants Sarah the secretary vote. And so it's like, okay, yeah. So, I would say that's been about 8 months now. And we're getting some really great work done. And we've done some neighborhood retreats with the city, where you spend a day with different city, different departments that talk about how you can get matching grants for your neighborhood to do signage or to throw a street party. The group really wants, their main priority is safety, and so we're actually working on a grant right now to try to increase safety in some areas where there's been some crime,
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I got involved because I thought, okay, I'll get involved, but then I thought, give it another try, because I think there was potential there that just needed to be kind of, needed a little time to percolate, I think. Yeah.